Hello and welcome to a celebration of 150 years. What a magnificent milestone. The oldest football club to survive under the same name. That really is something. And I believe a club that played a major role in the introduction of goal umpires, flags and the in the back rule. So 150 uninterrupted years is certainly worth celebrating. Dare I say it is a bit special. So have a wonderful evening. And here's to the Bombers in 2016 and beyond.
(1866) was the year when Kapunda was at a high point of its development after copper mining began in 1845. The mine was booming, with miners from Cornwall, Wales and Ireland adding to the strong population growth. Significant public buildings were in place, banks, churches and hotels were established. Kapunda had become a significant town in colonial South Australia. In April that year, the local newspaper, Kapunda Herald and Northern Intelligencer, announced on Wednesday evening last a meeting was held at the North Kapunda Hotel for the purpose of forming a football club. It was unanimously resolved that a club be formed to be called the Kapunda Football Club. That fact, 150 years ago, gives rise to tonight's celebrations for the football club established then, which not only still exists, but prospers to this very day. At first, football was some sort of activity played at the well-attended local picnics. Scratch matches followed. Then there were games against other towns, notably Gawler. Games against city clubs like South Adelaide, Adelaide and Woodville began in the early 1870s. A formal set of rules was adopted for use in 1877. In that same year, the Kapunda Football Club made such a strong stance against certain rules that it chose not to join the newly formed South Australian Football Association. Thereafter, football in Kapunda took a very different direction and went on to play games against nearer towns, such as Angaston in 1879, then Freeling, Greenock, Truro and Burra. Accidents happened, rivalries grew and controversies developed. It was a tough game with no place for the faint-hearted. It soon became apparent an association needed to be formed to develop the game locally.
The copper mining era came to an end in 1878, and with it came the end of Kapunda's place as one of the colony's most prominent towns. Kapunda's Guernsey colours were white and blue stripes. There was certainly no established home for games to be played. In 1875, Kapunda moved towards the development of a public recreation ground after Francis Dutton and James Pearce promised large donations to purchase a suitable block of land. Dutton Park was eventually opened in November 1879. After several unsuccessful attempts, the Barossa and Light Football Association was formed in 1908. Kapunda was an inaugural member and proudly has remained so ever since. We adopted the colours of red and black and retain them to this day. The league progressed well until World War I grew worse and football was put on hold. 307 men from Kapunda and district enlisted and 65 did not return, a ratio of 1:5. A typical soldier was Sergeant Fred Hawke, who died in Egypt from pneumonia. The newspaper obituary described him as a popular, fine-spirited young man, and as a footballer, he always played a manly game. After the war ended in 1919, football provided a useful distraction and a new focus for the town. 1921 saw Kapunda's first A-grade premiership of the Barossa and Light Football Association. Two more in 1922 and 1923, and then three in a row in 1927, 28 and 29. The new B-grade competition also saw Kapunda winning premierships. Legendary players from this era were Bill Truscott and Bert Hawke. In the 1930s and 1940s, Kapunda again achieved footballing success, finishing no worse than 4th in this 20-year period. More premierships came in 1935 and 1939. One of Kapunda's most enduring and successful players, Eric Kotz, won the Doe-Ring Medal in 1934. In 1935, Jack Maguire kicked a record 30 goals in one match. This period also saw the emergence of Kapunda's greatest player, Jack Dermody. Good ball handling, long kicking and speed were natural attributes when he won the Barossa and Light Association Best and Fairest Award in 1930, having just turned 20. In 1932, Jack commenced a career with Port Adelaide and played a total of 108 SANFL games, being Premiership captain in 1936 and 1937. He represented South Australia on 16 occasions and was state captain for the 1937 Perth Carnival. After a short stint of umpiring, Jack went back to play for Kapunda in 1939, ending in the grand final in 1950 when at the age of 40 he suffered a severe collarbone fracture. After playing, he became a prominent coach and administrator. Arguably, Jack's greatest contribution to Barossa and Light football was playing a key role in developing a junior football competition which started in the late 1950s.
After World War II ended in 1945, Kapunda won A-grade premierships in 1952 and 53. Success continued in the 1960s, with Kapunda winning another two in a row in 1964 and 65. During this successful period in the 1950s and 60s, Kapunda were fortunate to have charismatic coaches Bert Heffernan and Aldo Baraglia leading their charges to premierships. Strong individuals also set the standard over this period, with Vic Sorotsky, Norm O'Brien, Peter Vanderleer and Jim Hayward winning association medals. It took 10 years until another premiership in 1974 when things came together under tough and uncompromising coach Ken Tucker and the recruiting of the outstanding John Baruzzi. Emerging local players like Terry Ryan, Brian Menzel, Trevor Leslie, Gary Wilson, Greg Micken, Dennis Johnson, Robert Higgins, Phil Jarman, Ian Hamber, Wayne McDonald, Mick Rodey and Robert Jarman all had good seasons. The arrival of bank clerk Keith Eckerman helped, as did the arrival of new teachers John Schluter, Paul McCarthy and Trevor Durden. The tough men Trevor Giles and Alan Pryor held the backline together, and Phil Vomard, though he missed the final, played many games throughout the year. Alan Giersch came out of retirement for the last few games and became one of the very few players to have played in 5 winning grand finals, which included 2 in the Colts. Nuriutpur were slightly behind for most of the day before rallying to hit the front early in the final term, but Kapunda stormed back to kick the last 6 goals for a comfortable victory. Kapunda 17-13 115 to Nuriutpur 10-12 72. The match was played at Angaston before an attendance of 1,500 people. There were also some successes in the Colts grades and B grade during the early to mid 1970s. Kapunda lost the grand final in 1976, then drew the grand final in 1977 against Angaston, which resulted in a replay the next week. Angaston won. Mick Brown, coach at the time, has achieved some notoriety in that he took Kapunda to 3 grand finals in 2 years, only to lose all 3. The late 70s saw the arrival of 3 very good footballing sons, Jeff, David and Phil Shell. Over the next few years they made their mark on the club as outstanding players and coaches. Kapunda teams struggled on through the late 70s and early 80s, but there were some highlights, with the Colts winning premierships in 1984 and 1985. The B grade also won the grand final by a single point in 1985. 1987 saw Gawler teams joining the competition for the first time, providing the biggest change in the competition's long history and resuming the football battles Kapunda had with Gawler way back in the 1870s.
A grand final loss in 1987 was one of the rare occasions the senior teams got close to success, with both the A grade and B grade making the grand final. In 1988, the Bees were up again, this time under coach Trevor Leslie. While they did not score in the last quarter, they held a big lead at the last break and were never threatened. The grand final scores were Kapunda 9-12-66 to Gawler Central 7-3-45. After 1987, the club went through a lean period for the next 10 years, only winning a handful of games each year, and lay stranded at the bottom of the table. Former VFL and SANFL player Daryl Schimmelbusch was appointed coach, and with him came a succession of big imports who battled hard to stem the tide. One of those was SANFL legend Max Parker, who went on to coach the team. Despite Kapunda's lack of success during this period, there were a number of local players to shine through.
The early 90s saw one of the greatest finds in the club's history when former Norwood club champion Richard Anderson remarkably rang looking for a game. Richard's blistering speed and clean ball handling skills made him one of Kapunda's greatest players, winning the club's best and fairest from 1991 through to 1994, and then again in 1996. In 94, the decision was made to appoint him coach. However, through no fault of his own, the team underperformed, winning only 3 games in each of 1994 and 95. The changing landscape of football made it difficult for Kapunda to remain competitive. Was this the time for Kapunda to leave the Barossa Light and Gawler Association after, by then, 90 years of involvement? The answer was a resounding no. Soul-searching brought about changes in organisation, facilities, coaching and junior development. When all hope seemed to be lost, Kapunda won premierships in both the under-15s and 17s in 1996. The emergence of many local, young, capable players set the scene for success in the years to follow. There was also the discovery and retention of some key new players such as Jason Buckets McKenzie and West Coast boys Nathan Brady, Dallas Keane and Kane Williams. The appointment of legendary association player Mark Pittman capped off the unexpected turnaround, resulting in regular A-grade grand final appearances coming from the turn of the century. The B-grade won premierships in 2003 and 2006. Jason McKenzie won the association medal in 2001 and later in 2012. Michael McCarthy in 2004 and Brad Taylor in 2013. Medals in other grades were won by Rod Brown, Ben Randall, Corey Ryan and Jay Johnson during this decade.
The biggest triumph came when finally, in 2004, after a 30-year drought, Kapunda won the premiership, then repeated the dose in 2005. In both years against traditional rivals Angaston and then Freeling. The team got ahead early in the game and then dominated the second half. Supporters were able to start celebrating well before the end of the game. The standout performances by Michael McCarthy in 2004 and Ben Cook in 2005, providing the foundation for the two teams, which consisted of mostly homegrown players and key long-term imports who came, stayed and made Kapunda their club.
Since the tragic death of Mark Pittman in 2007, Kapunda had been rebuilding under local coaches Rodney Brown, Buckets McKenzie and now Michael McCarthy. In 150 years, only 4 players have reached the magical 300-game milestone. They are Sam Ryan, Mark Micken, Terry Ryan and Greg Hamber. And so, here we are after 150 years of football in this community. Tonight's celebration is a tribute to club leaders both past and present who have worked tirelessly to build and maintain a successful club. We thank all the players, coaches and countless volunteers who continue a fine tradition which began way back in 1866. We look forward to an even brighter future when new stories and new legends will emerge, featuring success on and off the field in a club noted for its stability and continuity.
Think